Welcome to Speak of the Devil. My name is Reverend Campbell, and we've got a fantastic show for you today. This week, I guess, the way the episodes run throughout the week, it may seem like it's been longer than a week since you've last been joining us, but according to my calendar, if we're counting the roast, it's been a week, so thank you all for tuning in. And for those of you tuning in live, thank you so much. It is nice to see you. Lorcan, good to see you. El Show de la Bakey. I don't know if I said that right. That's one hell of a username, but good to see you. Sadie, how are you, my dear? Pie, Sweaty Cabbage. Let's see, Christopher, good to see you, man. And Dallas, and let's see, that Pushin', how's it going, man? And anyone else joining us? Norm, hey, how's it going, man? Let us know if you have any questions throughout Frank, good to see you. Any questions throughout the course of this show. We will attack them as soon as we have an opportunity. And if not, then, chat amongst yourselves. We're just going to be here dancing, trying to entertain. All right, Ben, good to see you, man. All right, so today I've got a very special guest. I've got none other than Dr. Dylan Clarke. How are you, my friend?
I'm good, thank you. How are you, Adam?
I'm being a little presumptuous because I said my friend. I don't know. By the end of this, you may hang up on me. It may be a bad. We're gonna make it work. We're gonna be friends. Damn it! I want to be your friend. Well, first and foremost, this is the first time that you and I are meeting. I've heard a lot about you from a number of different people, and so I was very pleased that you were so good to come on and talk about yourself a little bit here on the show. But again, it is called Speak of the Devil, so maybe we should lead with the devil here. I mean, it's always a good idea to lead with the devil, I think. So are you down with talking about a little bit of Satan's stuff? Okay.
Yeah.
Then let's begin there. When were you first exposed to Satanism?
I think I was probably about 14. This would be back in the mid-90s. Was very interested in the internet in the earlier days of it, and so was my younger brother. And my brother at the time was very big on shocking our parents and everybody around us, and he'd find a new thing to be interested in that he thought would shock them every week. And one time it was Satanism. And I got reading the stuff to see what he was talking about, and it just absolutely resonated with me. So much so that I read everything I could online. And then maybe a year or two later, I finally was able to get a copy of the Satanic Bible, which wasn't easy to get hold of in England at the time. I had to order it from a bookshop, and it took 6 weeks to come. Okay. And I had to go in and ask about every couple of days. And having friends with me who were really shocked by what book I'd ordered. And then I got it, and I think I just sat up and read it in one night. Didn't go to bed at all, just thinking about it, because it was just, wow, this is just, everything's right in this. It's just what I think, but it's explaining it really simply.
Yeah.
That was what got me into it initially.
Well, let me, just for the sake of the audience here, and you had mentioned that you weren't from the U.S., where were you raised?
In just outside the town of Redcar in the northeast of England. It's a place probably most known for horse racing. International horse racing fans would recognise the name Redcar. Probably nobody else would.
Did you grow up in a religious household at all?
No, my parents were both atheists who kind of believed that you should write Church of England on some forms because you'd have an easier life. But other than that, no interest in religion.
Damn. And I make that comment because you had mentioned that your brother was getting into new things in order to shock people. And if they weren't necessarily religious, it seems a little bit strange that Satanism would shock them. Did you have a sense of the satanic panic growing up that was happening in parts of Europe, but primarily in America?
A little bit. I know growing up we heard about people desecrating churchyards and so on, these stories. And I later found out as an adult that actually there was a big thing about alleged satanic ritual abuse at a school maybe 10 miles from where I lived. I never heard about it at the time, but there was a huge panic and a bit of a scandal because a lot of children were examined by doctors in a way which was almost abuse itself. because they thought they might have been abused. So then as an adult, I knew people who'd gone through that as children, but when I was a child, I didn't hear much.
I'm always, just as a bit of a tangent here, I'm always a little bit suspicious of anyone who wants to search someone's person because of some other incident. And let me give you an example. So I was dating this really voluptuous young lady in high school, and there was some comment about like scratches or hickeys or something, and my parents wanted to make sure that I was a good prime young man, and not, engaging in any shenanigans when it came to sexuality. And so my stepdad, a little too eagerly, volunteered to inspect my girlfriend's body for hickeys, just to make sure that I wasn't engaging in any sexual activity. And I always thought, that's a little strange.
Yes.
Is that really why you want to search, or is it just that she looks fucking awesome and you just want to, get your fucking hands on it, you dirty old man? And I kind of feel like, you were mentioning that the investigation of the alleged abuses was probably a little more traumatic than the supposed abuses were, as well. That just kind of made me think about that. It's some dirty fucking people in this world. Or like the Inquisition, when people would accuse women of witchcraft, the priest would have to go in and just like dig in to search for some form of witchcraft, like moles or something. Less about witchcraft, I think, and more about just feeling up a pretty girl.
Yes.
It's pretty fucked up. Didn't mean to go off on that tangent, sorry. Yeah. Lorcan's saying, why so serious? Because he's a professional, man, that's why.
I tried smiling once, didn't like it, haven't really done it again.
You get these weird cracks on the side of your face, it's horrible. All right, so you identified with Satanism upon reading the Satanic Bible. Is this something, and I want to know your experience, because let me set this up really quick. Being raised in Utah, I'm geographically very close to California, and so when I read the Satanic Bible, I was like, well, I'm close to them in miles, but I feel like a world away. The environment of Utah in the 80s and 90s was dramatically different than California at the same time. And so, especially in my imagination, after having read the Satanic Bible and hearing about satanic rituals and all the publicity photos that were taken during satanic rituals in the 70s. And so my sense of Satanism was quite literally that it was a world away. So for you, being a quarter of the world away geographically, what was your sense of connection to that?
Probably not a lot of connection. It was more just the philosophy that was influencing me. I mean, I was on Alt Satanism a bit, the old news group, and looking for anything online. But yeah, I just almost saw it as like something out there in the dark. There's this great book. I know there's some more books. I'll try and order them. I don't know how long they'll take to come. That sort of idea.
Did you, gosh, let me start with the Americanism discussion point, because I think this is interesting. It's often said that Satanism is an American version of a religion. It is Americanism in its exploration. Was that ever factored into your understanding of Satanism when you were first discovering it? Did you even ever hear about that back then? I
don't know. I sort of saw it as maybe a bit more American than British, but I was already aware that there was certain aspects of British culture I didn't fit into too well. Mm. And from what I'd heard and seen on TV, that American culture fit me a bit better. Things like right to bear arms and the freedom of speech and things like that. Not quite as big on freedom of speech even in England.
Really?
Yeah, it's not something which is protected by law. And there's a lot more of sort of hate speech and doing things that are likely to cause a riot and that sort of thing.
Interesting. Okay, so let me ask you this, because it's such a large part of so many people's journeys to and through Satanism is ritual. Did you have a sense of ritual or a connection to the idea of ritual before you had discovered the Satanic Bible?
I had an interest in it because I actually, from a young age, I read a lot of books about the occult, and I never believed in them at all. I always saw it as something people did for brain change and like personal benefits. Mm. So I was always aware. I read a lot on hypnosis even from a young age as well. So I was fascinated by this idea of people doing things for the purpose of psychodrama or personal change. I really, when I was maybe about 12 years old, loved the Richard Cavendish book, The Black Arts, the history of occultism. Mm. So I was aware of all of that stuff. And then when I read the Satanic Bible, I was like, oh, this actually explains how it can be done usefully without the other stuff in. So yeah, I had a connection there.
Interesting. So how long have you been studying hypnotism?
I've had an interest in it, say, even as a child. I think I first did an NLP practitioner course back in 2005, I think it was.
And what is NLP?
Neuro-linguistic programming.
Okay.
It was three guys really, Richard Bandler, John Grinder, and I forget the name, Frank Puchalik, at the University of Santa Cruz in the 70s. They were looking into how great therapists did things, how great hypnotists did them, and trying to systemize how the human mind works. And they came up with what in some ways could be seen as a new take on hypnosis with a lot of other things thrown in. They modelled people like Fritz Perls from Gestalt therapy and Virginia Satir from family therapy, and at the same time took what was a bit of a hippie attitude, maybe a proto-punk attitude in we're going to do anything we can and figure it all out. And it grew into quite a big thing and a good way of learning things like hypnosis. I mean, it originally took its name as well. There's a few stories about the name, but one of the most convincing ones is that Richard Bandler, who was by training, he was a mathematician, wanted to do some therapy work with someone, and he was told, in the state of California, you need a doctoral degree to do therapy. And he said, it's all right, I do neuro-linguistic programming, that only takes a 3-week course. And, invent your own field, and then nobody can see it.
Yeah. Interesting. So, have you studied much of like the Satanic Witch and lesser magic throughout your time with Satanism? So how much of what you had studied as a young man with hypnosis is connected with lesser magic later in life?
I would say it is a lot. I think that there's a lot of crossover between the two. In fact, I was trying recently, it's a project I keep going back to sort of look at lesser magic and hypnotism and NLP and what are the connections, what are the differences and so on. And I would say there's a lot of crossover between the two of them, but what I found on a large scale, the biggest difference is that lesser magic on a whole focuses on sort of being in your map of the world and putting it out there, whereas hypnotism and NLP a lot more focus on going into somebody else's map of the world. So to put it simply, and this is a gross generalization, I would say lesser magic is look how cool I am. Hypnotism is look how cool you are and I've noticed it. Oh, although there's elements of both in both, I think there's the bigger focus one way and the other. But other than that, a lot of the tools are very similar and a lot of the prerequisites.
Yeah. So there's a question here from Pi in the chat room, and he says, any studies of Aleister Crowley? I came to this question, I was going to just skip over it because, of course, we understand that Aleister Crowley has nothing to do with Satanism. I'm not even 100% sure he has anything to do with hypnotism in any way. He's just a sort of occultnik. But from someone who had said that they loved reading about the occult, have you done a lot of study into Crowley?
Not a lot. I did read his, I think it was the autobiography, and I've tried to read one or two of his magic books. I got totally bored with them, not got very far in. But yeah, I found reading about his life fascinating, and also the fact that he was at Cambridge University, and I've presented there 5 times now. So it was a lot of fun finding out some of the details off Wikipedia of where he did certain things that were in his book and trying to find them when I was on a break. You know, the stories about him leading, I think he led a load of students and porters in a fight against the locals or something. And I was trying to figure out which street he was actually fighting on when it happened. So as I say, I haven't studied him, but I do find him interesting as a historical figure.
Yeah. Well, and that's that's the approach I kind of take with any of these more popular sort of occult claptrap type individuals that become popularized because of their own narcissism or their ability to fool enough people into thinking that they are someone of substance. I think it's absolutely fascinating that as an individual who was, in my opinion, completely unremarkable, his writing is not good. His goals were absurd and laughable. He wasn't in control of his own life in any stretch of the imagination, and yet people flocked to him. I see so many reflections of that in so many people that I meet, that it's sort of either, and this is sort of leading with my point, mankind is just overwhelmingly fucking retarded, and we just believe literally anything that's just shown up as this red card in front of our face, or the individual was really tapping into something that was interesting. So just based off of the limited information you have on him, do you think that Crowley was just really good at fooling people, or people are just in generally fucking stupid and looking for someone to follow?
I think he probably was reasonably good at fooling people, but I also think potentially he was very interesting in a time when there was a lot of bored people around him with money. You know, if there's nothing to do, people are going to see somebody exciting and then think, oh, I'll try this.
Yeah, absolutely. Sadie says he was like G.G. Allen before G.G. Allen. I've never looked at Aleister Crowley like that, but now I will never not be able to see him like G.G. fucking Allen. El Show de Labaki is asking what you think of Eliphas Levi. Do you have any strong opinions?
I don't know a lot about him. I remember the name vaguely from the Richard Cavendish book, but that's about it. I seem to remember, obviously, the Baphomet painting and things like that, but no, not really any opinion.
To be fair to the audience, he's not a doctor in occult history, so the questions like this may just be, reaching a little much. I just figured I'd ask because someone popped it up. Well, let's talk a little bit. We discussed hypnotists a little bit, and you said you actually had work on the side with it?
Yes.
How did that work? Is it you were just performing shows for people, or you would scam people out of money?
No, it was doing coaching and change work with people. So things not really up to a mental health level. I have had some training in that, but I'm not licensed. But things like, well, to give one example, when the sort of thing I'd do, this was one actually that it was at a conference. So I was at a hypnosis conference and I was working with a lady. She was Korean and she was having real trouble motivating herself to finish off a PhD and then to translate the thesis into English to be published. She had the contract, but every time she sat down to do it, she just distracted herself. And she wanted some help in just being able to motivate herself. So I took her into trance and took her through various therapeutic stories and processes and got her to the point where she just felt enthusiasm when she sat down to do it. And she later got in touch with me and said, I've finished it now and I've finished the thesis, it's accepted, and I'm doing the translations.
Oh, wow.
So that was one example. Years ago, not long after I did my first training, I was working in local government as a computer programmer, and also, I was programming, I was also managed a team. And I was near the end of the job and I was a bit sick of it. I knew I was leaving. And I had one of my team, she was in a horse riding accident and she broke her collarbone. She came back to work months later. Then she was in another horse riding accident. She broke the shoulder on the other side. Not only was she in a lot of pain and had scarring, but she was told she had to stop riding because if it happened again, they'd rebuilt them both with metal. It'd be a neck that broke next time. Damn. She's there, very, not clinically depressed, but very upset at work. She's also, because of the environment we were in, because we did IT for a call centre, the call centre team leaders are complaining about the fact that she's wearing a sleeveless top, which is because she's got her both arms supported in slings. And say, oh no, it's not fair. Our staff have to follow a dress code. So all this is happening, and she's quite upset. And I was a bit sick of the job, so I was like, I'm just going to do some work with her on this. We'll just tell the rest of the team to get on with it for a few hours. So I took her through a lot of visualization of what had happened and was able to take away a lot of the bad feelings of the trauma that she wanted, and got her to the point where she was feeling very enthusiastic. Prior to that, she'd been bursting into tears at work. Afterwards, she just wanted to get back to what we were doing and found it a lot easier to deal with the team leaders who didn't like how she was dressed as well. And she wasn't self-conscious about the scarring anymore either.
Wow.
So that's the type of thing that I've done both for people I like and for money.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, I feel like I would just walk up to people on the street and just try to, like, give me $50. Just totally make an ass out of myself. So maybe it's good I don't practice for the sake of the profession, for those who are passionate about it. Hellbound Heathen is asking about salsa dancing. But I'm going to end with that. I don't want to lead into that. I want to get into your profession here because I think it is very interesting. You have a PhD in computer science from Newcastle University. Okay, so first and foremost, I don't know many people who have PhDs in computer science. And so computer science is something that traditionally people get into and then they move into a career of some sort, but you went the extra mile and then some to get a PhD. So what started your interest in computer science and what drove you to get a PhD in it?
So those are two slightly different stories. So first of all, my interest in it, well, when I was 4 years old, my father bought us one of the old BBC Model B computers. This was 1984, and I just loved it from the moment I saw it. I remember typing in listings out of magazines and trying to learn to read better so I could type the listings in faster. I was that young. I loved computers from that early an age. I think I was 5 years old and I was at school and we had the same computers at school. And I remember the head teacher coming and getting me because she didn't know how to do something on the computer and she knew that I'd know it. So I've sort of had that from that age. I've got a very, I would say, natural talent for mathematics, which has probably been bolstered a bit because I'm dyspraxic. So that made me very bad at athletic things, handwriting, stuff like that, art when I was younger. So I tended to focus more on the things I was good at and probably went further with the maths. Yeah. So then, say again, I was about 13, I think. Me and my brother and my father had a business printing business cards and stationery for local businesses back when not many people did their own computer printing. So again, I've just had computers in everything that I've done. Then how I got to a PhD, well, initially I did a bachelor's, well, it was an undergraduate degree in mathematics, but it was one where you do an extra year and you get a master's straight away. So I went through that, got my Master of Mathematics, and then I went and worked in local government in a job that was partly statistics, but mostly computer programming and managing a team of developers. Did that for ages. I say, got a bit sick of it, and also didn't like that we bring consultants in on maybe equivalent of maybe $1,500 a day, and they didn't know how to program as well as I did. And I knew there must be people out there who knew it better than me, because I was mostly self-taught, other than a few classes during my maths degree. So when I got thoroughly sick of it, I looked at, I want to go back and learn to be a really good developer. So I saw that I could get some sponsorship because I had good enough grades to go and do a master's degree in system design for internet applications. Went back, did this extra master's degree, absolutely loved it. I was planning to become a software architect or similar at the end. And then I was approached by one of the professors, and he said he could get me funding to do a PhD if I wanted to. And I was liking academic life at that time, and I'd heard a lot about how good it could be for somebody. I looked at the project he had, and I went for it. We got the funding, and that was really how I got into doing a PhD.
Wow, that's fantastic. Yeah, my exposure to academic life would be Ghostbusters. Like at the beginning, when they get fired from the college from their pseudoscience exploration into the paranormal. I was like, Spangler couldn't make it. There's no way I could make it as an academic. Fucking Ghostbusters. I think that's really interesting, and a testament to your innate ability that someone is going to trust in your skills so much that they're someone just fell off my fucking desk. That they would help you and guide you into a PhD, even to find the funding. That's amazing. So explain to me and to the people watching what you've done with your education so far. I know that's broad, but like in the academic field, what have you done for academia, and then have you worked outside of academia?
Well, I worked for a local authority as a programmer before my PhD, then got the PhD, and during the PhD I also did teaching for the university. So initially I was funded, but I could work up to 6 hours a week teaching, and I got that money on top of it, and it was all tax-free at that time in Britain, which was quite nice. So I did that. Then when my funding finished, as often happens with someone, your years of funding are up, but you need a couple more months to finish writing up. So I took a graduate teaching assistant job, and then I was mainly teaching practical classes, which is another thing where the hypnosis comes in really useful. Because if you've got first-year students who panic on the first programming class and think they can't do it, to just be able to tell them a nice story about how I overcame it when I was younger and have them get really calm is really useful. So I was a graduate teaching assistant for a year. Then after that, I was a research associate, which is very much, you're kind of like a professor, but you do less teaching and you work for a professor. Yeah. And so I did most of my research post-PhD has been security. So I done we broke a protocol called Dragonfly, was one of the things we did. It was a key exchange protocol, so the sort of thing you'd use to set up secure communications on the internet. We saw this protocol was being proposed as the standard to use on the internet. And my boss said, that's probably not secure, but I can't figure out why. It just doesn't look good. So I figured out how to write a program that could just extract all the keys from it when somebody ran it. We did that. Then we got into a lot more controversy, because then all the NSA spying stuff hit, and it turned out the man proposing it worked for the NSA. So we can never prove it, but they probably knew what the weakness was in it and wanted it for that reason. So we broke Dragonfly. We built some things to do with secure deletion. I've done a lot in electronic voting, built systems, analysed systems. There's a textbook on e-voting called Real World E-Voting. I wrote the chapter on the Estonian electronic voting systems for that. Oh, wow. My author was Taavi Martins, who's the head of e-voting for Estonia. But basically, he gave me any facts I needed that I didn't already have access to, and he let me write it. Then he just commented on it at the end.
Wow. Let me back up slightly here, because the idea of internet security It's like a warm blanket, I think. People want it. It feels good. It sounds good. You're secure online. You can wrap yourself in that thought, and it makes you happy. But it's full of holes, right? I mean, there is no such thing. So, in your personal opinion, is there a system? Is there like a best version of, or best practices that businesses can take, other than just not being online? or is everything just hackable and it's just sort of out there?
I would say both of those viewpoints, they're both true at the same time. Everything is hackable, but it's a question of what you're defending and who you're defending it against. Mm. One of the approaches I quite like, which comes from Ross Anderson, who's a Cambridge professor, is the idea of security economics. And part of that is that if it costs somebody more to break into your system than it's worth for them to break in, then it's probably secure. It's a strange way to think about it, but in all cases, I mean...
Risk reward.
There's a phrase Bruce Schneier uses, which I like, which is there's two types of security. The security that keeps your secret safe from your sister, or stops your sister reading your diary, and the security that stops the government from reading your diary. And you're always thinking about those things, Like, I mean, for example, the web page for this show, you're probably worried about to some degree that, say, a young hacker will get on and deface the website. You're probably not worried about stopping the US government from getting into it.
It's true. I actually wasn't worried about the hacker until you mentioned it. Now I'm going to come to you. I need your help. Defend me. Yeah, but it's so prevalent in our society now. The idea of needing security at all times. And like in one hand, it's nothing is secure, so you must have the greatest security in your websites and your passwords and everything. And on the other hand, it's, well, nothing is really secure. Everyone can get into anything that you have, and we're willingly giving our information out to third-party websites like any social media network and any e-commerce website. Just, here, take my money, take my credit card number, take my PIN number as I enter it in, and then we're still concerned about security. Like, we can't have it both ways. It seems absurd to me. Where do you think this insistence on being protected and yet giving everything away for free to anyone that asks, where does that hypocritical nature within us come from, do you think?
I think some of it is that we don't really understand risk very well. That's something that's been, we evolved to deal with very small societies and threats like a tiger might eat us. We didn't evolve to deal with these large groups of people. So threats that we can't see somehow don't seem as real to us. Also, I'm not that bothered about a lot of there are a lot of internet risks as much as a lot of people in my field are. I think there is a lot when it comes to things like credit card details, where the banks do protect you fairly well. Didn't always used to be the case. There's some horrible stories from in England, people who got the cards stolen and got prosecuted for it because the banks insisted our security's perfect. So you must be a fraudster if you say somebody's stolen your money.
Oh my gosh, and they got away with it?
For quite a while, yeah. Ross Anderson, the guy who I mentioned, he made his name a lot, helping people like that defend themselves. There's a great story of very occasionally a bank system will just go wrong and they'll make like a payment that just shouldn't have been made. And this happened to somebody who happened to be a drug dealer and was in police custody when the payment was made, and his card was in custody with the desk sergeant. So when that happened, the desk sergeant was suspended and prosecuted for having supposedly stolen his card. And the bank said, our systems, no, they're just totally secure, they're totally reliable. Desk sergeant must have stolen it. And Ross got involved, and between him and the lawyers, they ended up being able to prove that this payment was made in a particular shop or it was supposedly was, in person, and they could get the payment before it and the payment after it, and they got those two people to testify in court that nobody was stood between them in the queue. So the sergeant couldn't have been there making the payment. And then the bank came back with, but our system's totally reliable, to which Ross said, OK, let me audit it. And their response was, we've decided to drop the case.
Of course.
Because they didn't want people to know how insecure it was.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, that's funny. Marcy had a good question here. I got to scroll for it. How do you think net neutrality or the repeal of net neutrality will have any impact on cybersecurity?
I'm not sure whether it will or not. I think I would want to wait and see, whichever happens, what then the consequences of that are. Because a lot of people are shouting about, say, the dangers of repeal. And I just think it's something almost like, well, to bring up politics, like Brexit, that nobody will know what it actually means until years after it happens.
Right. Well, and they're so different. I mean, they're sort of buzzwords within our internet zeitgeist because that's the vernacular that we use today, and they're hot topics. But the repeal of net neutrality has more impact on companies trying to speed up or slow down connection to their business partners than it has on security. And so I'm not sure where the cybersecurity element would come in the context of that question.
The only thing I can think of off the top of my head is the more that you allow companies to do, the more possible things they are that groups like the NSA could maybe exploit, because a lot of security breaches are to do with clever things in, say, how a piece of hardware or software works, as opposed to how everybody understands it to work. For example, you get some timing attacks, and often you'd have some cryptographic operations, lots of maths being done on a big number, but how quickly a machine did the maths could tell you what range the number would lie in because of the ways that mathematical operations are sped up in hardware. So you've got strange things like that happening, and I'm guessing the more that you let companies mess about with things, the more opportunities there would be to put strange things in it, people wanting to.
Yeah, I could see that, because they already do that with apps, that you install on your phone for one reason, and really it's just data collection of the information on your phone that they then take and then sell to whatever interested party. So I could see that, yeah. Net neutrality, in my opinion, is it's strange because cell companies are already using forms of it. They're allowing either Netflix or music programs or direct TV programs to stream through if it's a sister company or the parent company owns both companies. But they're not actively slowing anything down so far. And so I think it would be a very bold... It would take a lot of balls for a company to abjectly force you to pay more for the access that you have right now.
Yeah. In
just 2 weeks after it's been repealed. I mean, that's a PR nightmare. So yes. I think they're going to be doing it in a little more subtle ways, like the cell companies have been doing. They just give you better access to their partners rather than removing access from their competition in some cases. Yeah, and cybersecurity, from a personal level, so as an individual engaging online in shopping and in communicating and in sharing in social networks, are there any best practices that you would suggest just to maintain personal security? Yeah,
I actually was involved in doing an online course for FutureLearn, which is free on this subject. So that's out there. We did it at Newcastle University, and I talked a lot about it in the videos. But I think on basic things, I would say probably the biggest thing is deal with companies that you trust. Yeah. And don't do anything like sticking credit card numbers in emails. Which I do remember a company, and this would be the late 90s, I think it was, who but they would only accept either payment by check or a credit card number via email. And they said, if you want to be secure, put half of your number in one email and half in the other. A lot of people did that, and as far as I know, nobody ever had a problem.
That's crazy.
And the other thing I would say as well is that even with best practices, you can always have something go wrong. There's a story that I actually told in the Future Learn course that happened to me. So I went to a hypnosis seminar in Bangkok in Thailand, and I booked the hotel room online. It was a reputable hotel. I knew I checked everything. Yeah, the website's secure. It's all fine. And then it seems when I got there, because I saw it when they'd printed out all the details and written my credit card number down in a folder and left it on the desk like they did with everybody. So when they needed to run it later, it was there. And I was there, and on my way back, I was flying through Dubai, my bank rang me and said, somebody's tried to use your credit card to buy loads of online gambling tokens. Do you authorise this? I think I know where they got that credit card.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, man. Well, and then that's the other side of it, is that I could see stuff like that working. It works today, to be fair. But, you know, people stealing your cards and running up debt. But companies are so savvy nowadays, and banks are going out of their way to protect their customers. It's rare that outside of stealing your identity and fucking with your credit scores, just stealing a credit card, it's rare that an individual is ever really affected personally by that, because banks are so great nowadays at catching it, making sure it's authorized, and then dealing with it on your behalf, at least the ones that I've come in personal contact with.
Yeah. Like
I've had people, you know, from online sites that I didn't necessarily trust, but I wanted the service. That sounded really, I'm going to leave that open-ended. That someone ended up, and I think it was in Ireland or someone, just running up the debt. Ireland? Wait, Norn? Did you steal my fucking credit card? Running up massive debt, but it was all like fish and chip shops, just like stupid, like nickel and dime. Then my bank called me. They're like, "Hey, are you traveling?" I was like, "No." They're like, "You have like all this debt on your card right now, and it's all in these places, and it's all like restaurants." And I was like, "Wow, how fucking stupid can you?" I mean, I guess, you know, that's probably the best way of doing it, is just doing small little charges before it gets caught, because then you don't have to worry about it not being accepted. You know, you get it in the moment. You get to have your fucking fish and chips or whatever. But yeah, it's just, it always comes back. So Norn has this great question that I want to bring up. Well, it's a terrible subject. Good outcome. So he said, some of the work that you've come in contact with, dealing with taking down child sex sites.
I was, I've been at various, there were like crime conferences with the police, and there was guys there who were asking what input we could give them into things that they were doing. And some of it, well, one story a guy told me, he was wanting to know about things to do with storing digital fingerprints, which we got into a bit, but he had the awful job that basically when they found videos that paedophiles had, he had to sit and watch these videos to see if they were ones that I'd already seen before. So he spent like 8 hours a day with 4 of these videos on a split screen running at like fast forward, watching them. And he was asking us about how you can digitally fingerprint them so a computer can say if they're the same videos rather than him having to watch them all day. And we did some work around that.
Wow. God damn, I could not handle that. I mean, just YouTube videos of like people getting blown up or beheaded and stuff. No, thank you.
Yeah. The other thing this guy talked about, which he said, you know, getting to very controversial things, is they were wanting to know with people downloading illegal images about categorizing them into who to go after first, which, you know, is like, we'll arrest this guy today, but then because it maybe takes them a long time to track down who they are, but we won't bother arresting this guy for a month because he's less dangerous. And that's the sort of thing they couldn't even really talk about much publicly.
Wow.
Because obviously, you know, everyone think, well, arrest them all. And they're going, but we've only got so many people to arrest them.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a lot of things like that. And a lot of it, the help that they needed, it was fairly basic computer science. It was, some of it as well was things like, how do you search a hard drive more quickly, that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. But being what they did, they weren't computer scientists, and it had a huge potential to help them.
Wow. Yeah, I think that's fantastic. And it is tough. It's got to be tough in those situations where you're like, well, of course, we would love to arrest all of these types, but we just genuinely can't. So we have to find some way of identifying the worst of them so that then we can go after them and then sort of work our way down. It's such a difficult situation to put yourself in. And just the abstract notion of being paid to be the guy that has to review all that terrible footage and imagery. Fuck, that's got to leave a scar in you.
Yeah.
Like in your head.
I mean, the guy I talked to, he told me the way he got into it was that originally back in the 70s, when normal pornography was a lot more controlled in Britain, he worked for the Vice Squad, and his job was basically to watch ordinary adult pornography and see if it broke the law or not. So he had for years what was quite a cushy job. And when that went, he was the expert in watching pornography at high speed. So where did they transfer him?
Oh man, that's the worst transfer ever. You're going from adult pornography to the child division, and he's just kicking and screaming, please no, please no. It's the worst. Here's a question that I want to ask you because I'm interested in it, and I don't know if it gets talked about enough. What are your thoughts on cryptocurrency?
Cryptocurrency, I'm a little suspicious of it, but I can see it as a good thing. I've done some research around it. I had a couple of papers published. Some of it looking at online payments in general, some of it at how you can attack Bitcoin stuff and how you can piggyback other things onto it. Really, where I have maybe the biggest interest in it is how people manage to jump into things like that and make big money off it before it all goes wrong. It's had a bit of a feeling like some of the day trading booms and stuff like that to me. Yeah. And at the moment, there's just some hilarity going on. Sarah's chasing our cats around the room. They've escaped.
She's supposed to be in the chat room, damn it.
Yes.
Not your room. Yeah, I don't know. I've always been interested in that. And yeah, it does honestly seem it's one of those things where you look at it and you're like, well, why the fuck would anyone ever bother? And then 5 years later, you hear that a kid is now a millionaire because he put in $100, 5 years earlier. And you're like, how the fuck? What kind of nonsense is going on? But that's how it works sometimes. I want to ask you a little bit about the electronic voting. So you built e-voting systems that have been used in large trials. Is that for the UK? Is that for the US? What was that?
It's been for the UK. We've done some stuff. Well, one of the big systems I did, it was kind of a proof of concept with other uses, and it was called classroom voting. So the idea with that is now they use a lot of these electronic systems where students can show in a class what they think the right answer to a question is, and the lecturers can see. We had the idea of these often get used for things like student feedback. They're also usually totally insecure. So a dishonest instructor could change the feedback, could change the score, and that can make a difference to people's career. So we thought, what if we combine secure e-voting technology with one of these systems? So that was one of our big ones. And what it allowed us to do as well was do a lot of studies on how people interacted with a proper secure e-voting system. Because the stuff that's used in the US isn't what we would call a secure system at all. It's either, well, it's got different rules. I mean, standard paper voting, like was done years ago and is still done in Britain, That's not a secure system as far as a cryptographer's concerned.
Yes.
It relies on guards, things like that, and people seeing. That's more how the US stuff works. You know, you trust people that, well, essentially what I would say is, if everybody who's got a stake in the election believes it works, it probably works. You know, if the loser will trust it, then you have a fair idea it's not being tampered with. And that's basically how elections work. But a mathematically secure e-voting system, you can look at the cryptography and say there is only a certain probability that somebody's tampered with it. And that probability is so small, it would take millions of years or something.
Wow, yeah.
So yeah, we implemented these secure e-voting systems to use for classroom voting. We've also used them for things like student elections, and we've done a bit with trialling them as sort of, when British local elections happened, there was a parallel system which didn't count, which was ours, which people could also vote in, so that we could get used to it. I don't personally think the British government within the next 20 years will go to electronic voting. But that was what we were looking at doing.
Do you think, and it's strange because this is the progression, the natural progression of a society, at least it seems it is in ours, but do you think that we are going to move to an all digital voting system, or do you think collectively, you know, Europe, UK, USA, or do you think that we're going to see so much ability in tampering with it that we're going to reject it eventually?
I suspect we will go to it eventually. One interesting thing that seems to happen internationally is e-voting is a lot more accepted in countries where there's a lot of corruption, which seems counterintuitive. Well, I think some South American countries have jumped on it because they see their paper ballots being tampered with all the time. Right. So they think, well, electronic voting will be harder for the guys who tamper with it to tamper with. And so that's a bit paradoxical. Yeah. But I suspect the US system, it would just be too expensive to go back to paper voting in a lot of places. So I think it will stay electronic and it will just slowly get better and better.
I hope so. Yeah.
Estonia seems to be leading the world. I think their systems are good. A lot of security researchers and universities would disagree with me because they don't like certain properties of them. But yeah, I think Estonia's stuff's pretty good. But Estonia has a huge benefit over the US and the UK in that in Estonia, you get a national ID card, which is maybe the equivalent of the social security card, and it has a key on it for digital signatures. So everybody has a cryptographic key that the government's given them. And that just makes it totally different as far as voting's concerned.
I don't think I ever would have expected to hear those words. Estonia's got a better system. In my head, I've never conceived of that ever having been said ever. That's amazing to me. And I think, so ask me your sensibility about this, because as... traditionally, the culture in America is individualism over even collectivism that is for the individual's benefit. And you see that a lot in the South. You see that a lot in the outcome of our current election, where it's a continual rejection of the government, and yet our willingness to allow the government to make tons of decisions, the irony there, for us. But the act of assigning someone a digital fingerprint has been discussed many times, and you can argue that there are forms of it that exist already, but it's been wholly rejected as a concept, even though it's been implemented in some part, because of this idea of individualism, our innate fear as Americans of a government taking over, of a government having too much dominion over you. Do you have this same sense when it comes to national ID cards or, assigned chips in traditional ID cards?
I think my worry would always be who looks after the data, how is it managed more than anything else. I don't think the idea of, say, like a government just giving people chips is necessarily bad in itself, because I think to a degree, the government can always ruin your life if it really wants to. So things like that to me, I mean, also somebody who's clever enough can always get round it. They can find a way to get somebody else's chip or something like that. It's always going to be a game of the really freedom-loving people or the criminals versus the government. But my concern would always be who stores the data and what can be done with it. I don't really mind if the government gives me a chip which uniquely identifies me. I do mind if they then allow 15 other people to steal it and use it and then hold me responsible.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons that I don't have a large concern with online banking or giving my credit card to less than trusted companies, because I know that my bank has my best interest in mind, simply because I've seen them do it. And it ultimately is in their best interest. So it's not really they're looking after me as an individual, but it's taking care of my wallet. And they've proven time and time again for me. And sometimes it's a pain in the ass because I have to call them and authorize a payment when I forgot to tell them that I'm, on vacation or something. But they go out of their way to put these security measures in place and then to provide a service as a sort of safety net. So, my parents, for example, will never bank online because they're terrified of having their bank information online. But the irony is that it is online. Whether or not they access it online is irrelevant. And if you do access it online, you have immediate access to every single transaction immediately, like real time right there. So it's more secure if you're actively watching it rather than just sort of burying your head in your checkbook. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me, but that's crazy. Just fucking crazy. Sorry, another fucking rant for no reason.
I totally agree with that. Access to information always makes it safer.
Yeah, the more open anything is, I think, in all honesty, ultimately, the safer it becomes. And just the better, I think it is. Okay, so we've touched on some heavy-hitting stuff. Let's take some light steps out here. So let's talk about some salsa dancing. Where did your passion for salsa dancing come from?
Well, I've always enjoyed the music, but really it was when I went back to university to do the second master's degree. I wanted a new hobby at the time. I'd done martial arts for years, and I was kind of getting out of it a little bit. And I was like, I want something to do that's fun and physical, but not necessarily martial arts, fighting. I looked at a few things, and the university had salsa classes that were very reasonable. I went along, and I just absolutely loved it. Now, at first, I wasn't very good at all, because again, as I've mentioned, I'm dyspraxic. But I'd been doing a lot to overcome the dyspraxia, part of it with NLP things. I was really into, yes, a physical hobby that I find difficult. This is going to be a good thing for me. So I worked away. I was at one point where I think I was going to 2 salsa classes a week, and I had a couple of male friends, and we all went out to salsa, and we were going 2 nights a week. We went to classes. The other 5 nights a week, we went out to clubs. Just every single night of the week, go out. And a lot of people were friendly, but there was a bit of elitism in it, especially when you're like very white guys who were working computer science, and you go out and there's some people are there to learn and socialize when it's social dancing. Some of the women especially, are there to meet this awesome Latino guy with this exciting life, not a computer scientist who's just starting to learn. So sometimes people could be a bit cruel about your dancing. So we'd make a rule with ourselves that we'll go out. If the club's got a class at the start, we'll do the class. And then we have to dance with 10 women that we don't know during the night. And if we don't, then can't go home until you've danced with these 10 women. If you haven't had 10 dances, you've got to buy dinner for the other 2. So we do this, and then we'd get more. We'd go out, we'd have 10 dances, then we'd sit around and talk. And be like, no, new rule, you've got to leave if you haven't danced for 3 songs. And we do all of this, dancing all the time. And I just got really, really good at it, loved it. For a while, I was dating a girl who was a salsa dancer as well. And it it probably became a huge part of my life for ages.
Wow.
You as well, it's the connection you get when you maybe dancing with somebody you've never met before, but it's a song that you both love, you both know the style of dancing, and it's just interpreting the music, connecting to each other, moving together. And yeah, it's something I absolutely love. And I would say at one time, certainly a lot of people I know would have rated me as one of the best male dancers in the northeast of England. I performed a bit, but really social dancing was where my passion was.
That's cool, man. This is something that growing up, I don't know if it was just because I grew up in sort of hunting towns, towns where there was just rural areas, for my informative years. And the idea of dancing as a man outside of Kevin Bacon and Footloose was unheard of. Like, you would never. But I had sisters that were so insistent that I would do dance routines with them because it was the 80s and that's what you did. That I just sort of got, I'm not good, but I got, I had some moves. And so taking that dancing sensibility and applying it to, girls that you're trying to court or just, make a connection with, like you were saying, if you both know the moves, if you both know the song, you immediately have an intimate connection with this person, regardless of anything else, because nothing else matters in that moment. And you're just able to, I don't even know, you're just making this connection that without the dance, without that activity, it would take dates in order to make. This sort of really wonderful rhythm that you're playing off of each other, and it's I don't know, it's sexy as hell. I want to go see my wife right now. It's awesome. I dig it a lot, and that's probably, in my opinion, one of the only redeeming factors of weddings is the dancing after the ceremony. It's just so much fucking fun, and it's something that I don't think. If you're an individual who doesn't feel like you know how to dance, or you're not comfortable, you just don't feel like you have a sense of rhythm, well, maybe you don't, you should still go and try, because there's so much to be said for that. Not only the physical fitness side of it, which is fine and great, but the individual human connection side of it, I think, for me, and it sounds like for you, is one of the greatest fucking things. Just awesome.
Another side effect I noticed of it, which is I also go to a lot of metal shows, and I found after I got quite good at salsa, I stopped getting hurt in mosh pits. You learn how to move with people and music more, how your body goes, and suddenly somebody could hit me and I'd just move with it. I also remember one time, this was at Whitby Gothic weekend, but it was a very heavy band. I think it was New Model Army actually were playing, and people were just slamming off each other, and this guy got hit hard and he started to go down in a really dangerous way. I just grabbed him by the wrist and put him back up, and I don't even know how I did that. Must be the martial arts and the salsa and everything over the years. I just got the exact leverage point to get him back on his feet without thinking.
That's crazy. See, I've had the exact opposite experience, where my friends put me up. We were at this punk show. My friends put me up like crowd surfing, and this gigantic black guy just wrapped, because I hit his head with my heel of my foot. He just wrapped his arm around my waist and slammed me to the ground. And I was like, I'm done. So it's nice to know there's an opposite side of that. Fucking shit. Yeah, that's weird. I never would have made the connection between like salsa dancing and then surviving a mosh pit. I always go into a mosh pit okay, I'm gonna be hurting tomorrow. It's gonna be blood, and I'm just gonna have to try to fight my best and just survive as long as I can, because they have a life of their own. It's like a black hole. It just sort of consumes everything around it. And you may be spit out at any moment, or you may be thrown into the deep center. You just don't know if you're at that event horizon or not. And it's just a nightmare if you're not ready for it. That's cool, though, that's something that you sort of took out of that. That's crazy. Sorry, I'm scrolling through all the questions and comments, trying to get back down to where we are right now. Chaotic Scott says he can't dance very good, but just making the attempt got him laid more than a few times. There's a lesson there, people. It's true. It works. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about weight training. We're sort of at the time limit that I've set aside for our conversation here. What type of weight training do you do?
I'm very influenced by starting strength and Matt Ripito, Andy Baker, people like that. So it's kind of basic powerlifting moves and a bit of accessory work. At the moment, I train on like a heavy, light, medium sort of intermediate program. So I'll get into the gym on a Tuesday, do 4 sets of 5 heavy squats, 4 sets of 5 heavy bench press, and then work up to 1 set of heavy 5 on the deadlifts, then do a few accessories, do a light day a couple of days later, again squats, overhead press, bent over rows, some accessories, then a medium day for the 3rd session of the week, squats again, close grip bench press, stiff leg deadlift, some accessories. So quite basic training and just building up the weight all the time.
Nice. I'm going to be having a show based around the idea of fitness and nutrition here coming up, and that what you just described is something that we're going to be talking about as well. But do you find that you have a benefit other than, of course, just strength itself that you don't find in dancing from weight training? Like what do you get out of weight training that you never got out of salsa dancing?
I think, well, actually, one thing I was just thinking about this when we were talking about salsa. There's something I got out of it at the start, which I don't anymore, which I get out of weight training, and that's pushing myself to do something difficult. You know, when I was first learning salsa, I didn't know if I'd managed to do things. It could be a little bit scary, and it was really pushing myself, and you know, that mental fortitude. Once I got good at it, well, it was just fun. You know, there wasn't really that weight training. It's like every time you go and do a heavy session, can I get this weight? And I think that is hugely good for me, especially like in the modern society. I think the strength's good for health anyway, but there certainly is a mental thing. There's also, I would say, the objectivity of it as well. I think Henry Rollins said something along the lines of, I think it's £100 is always £100, even if it doesn't like your band. You know, it's just, you can't argue with some weight. You can't say it's being unfair. It's not just going to become heavier for the sake of it. It's not going to become lighter. You know what you're doing, and you either do it or you don't.
So when did you start with weightlifting?
I've been doing weights on and off since I was about 18, but I got really serious on it about 3 years ago. So I did a starting strength linear progression, got up to some reasonable weights, realised things weren't going quite as well as I wanted them to. So I got some coaching online, and it was done by a video that really sorted my form out on exercises. I got myself up to the point I was squatting in the high 300s for sets of 5, deadlifting in the low to mid 400s. And then when I moved to Kentucky, that kind of fell to pieces a bit because it was different weather. I was on a different time scale. Things didn't go great, and then I got it sorted out. I'm back on it again, and I'm getting back up there again now. I'm going to go past it.
Nice. Well, good luck to you on that and everything else. This has been really interesting. This has been a fantastic conversation. It's been an absolute pleasure getting to know you. Thank you for coming on.
I've really enjoyed it as well. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. For all of you tuning in, I know there's a lot of people that came in during our conversations, and I didn't have an opportunity to call you out. Thank you guys so much for your interaction. I genuinely appreciate it. And it added to the show, not just for us as the guest and the host, but for the other viewers as well. And for those of you who are watching this after the fact, there's an entire chat room of communications and stories and sharing of ideas that you're missing out on. So tune in live next time, and there's a couple ways that you can find out when the next live show is going to be coming. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, sign up to the email list, and as a bonus, hook a brother up and give me a rating or review on the website. All the links are in the description of the video right below that you're watching. Dr. Clarke, Dylan, it's been an absolute pleasure, and I think, well, I would like to consider you a friend now. What do you think?
Yes, I think so.
Good. Mission accomplished. Thank you again for joining me so much, and until we can speak of the devil again, hail Satan.
Hail Satan.